Thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen. I'm delighted to be here with all of you tonight to mark the publication of All to Play For, which is my updated biography of Rishi Sunak. The Prime Minister, unfortunately, couldn't attend tonight, but he did send this message.
Good evening, everybody. Good evening. Well, let me just start thanking Sir Graham for the very warm introduction, but also to Angus, Paul, and the whole Pod Home team for hosting us here tonight. Thank you very much. Also, thank you, Michael. And now, those of you that know Lord Ashcroft, he wrote a biography of me when I was Chancellor, which obviously I was delighted about when I heard about it. But then when I became Prime Minister, he wrote a second volume, which is doing very well, I hear.
Selling well in India.
Selling well in India. But what I'm really looking forward to is Volume 3 that talks about the 2024 Conservative Party general election victory.
And first, to the many people who contributed to this book anonymously, thank you. You know who you are. And I must thank my publishers, Biteback, particularly James Stevens and Oliver Beattie. Biteback is, of course, a premier, professional, and one of the best book publishers in the United Kingdom, and it is a mere coincidence that I own it. And also thank you to our sponsor, Gusbourne, for the sparkling English wine tonight. Again, it's a coincidence that I own the vineyard. And thank you to Angela Entwistle and her team for all their work arranging this evening. And a big thank you as well to the Daily Mail titles and their editors, Ted Verity and David Dillon, for their wonderful serialization of the book a few weeks ago. And when I first conceived of writing a biography of Rishi Sunak, times were very different. It was April 2020. Rishi had been Chancellor for just a few weeks and the pandemic had struck. The book was published later that year under the title Going for Broke. Sadly, we were only able to have an online launch, and I don't much like online launches. So I was somewhat grateful to the Parliamentary Conservative Party last year when they decided to depose Boris Johnson as their leader so that I could have an updated book and a launch party. And that act set in motion a sort of relay race which made tonight possible. And in case anyone needs to be reminded, in September 2022, Johnson handed the baton to Liz Truss. And just a few weeks after that, Liz Truss equally reluctantly handed the baton to Rishi. And that gave me the license I needed to fully revise and update Going for Broke. And here we are launching it properly under its new title, All to Play For. And ever since he became Chancellor, I've thought that Rishi was going to be a key player on the political scene, but nobody could have predicted how quickly he'd be in number 10. He's been there for exactly 1 year now, and doesn't time fly? And over the course of this project, it's been fascinating to discover more about how Rishi has tackled the many and varied challenges that have confronted him. I think that we can all agree that he took on a job that most people wouldn't have had the stomach for. Of course, going into politics for the praise would be as daft as going in it for the money, for most of them. But even so, the fact that he was prepared to step up and says something about his character. It was hard to find anyone with a bad word to say about Rishi, except perhaps for Boris Johnson, Liz Truss, Nadine Dorries, Jacob Rees-Mogg, and okay, it wasn't that hard. So yes, he has his distractors. And of course, his distractors point out that the polls have not been good for the Conservatives over the past 12 months. Indeed, my own research found recently that more than 7 in 10 people think Britain is broken and nothing works properly. This is hardly the most promising pre-election platform for the Conservatives to be standing on after what will be 14 years in office. But my reading of the situation is that voters at the moment are not so much pro-Labour as they are anti-Conservatives. And Rishi's own ratings are better than his party's. And I do believe that if the next election is fought on what are essentially presidential lines, that's to say Sunak versus Starmer, Rishi can be a little bit more optimistic. And making political predictions is rarely advisable, but with the right offer, I think Rishi has a fighting chance to surprising some people next time, even if it's not to the finishing line. And many voters like his air of calmly getting on with the job, and they're pleased that he is loosening the leash when it comes to net zero targets, and there are other issues that he needs to release the leash on, especially around the woke agenda. But times are hard, and they do wonder if his government sees their predicament or has a grip on events. Even so, we might still be a year or more from an election, and as history teaches us, a lot can happen in that time. And I was reminded recently that in the general election of October 1964, everyone thought Labour leader Harold Wilson would win by a landslide after another 13 years of Tory rule. But Wilson's majority, for those old enough to have witnessed it, was only 4 seats. Had the Tories worked harder and been more positive, they may have been able to have hold on. And so the title, All to Play For, was chosen carefully. It reflects the fact that Rishi is still in the game, and the game isn't totally over. And I will ask you to do your bit to support good causes by buying copies of All to Play For yourself, friends, family, colleagues, and indeed anyone else that you can think of. And that's because this struggling author in front of you is 100% committed to donating all royalties from the books to charity. And thank you very much indeed for coming along this evening, and enjoy the rest of the evening and enjoy that wonderful sparkling wine, Gusbourne. Thank you very much indeed.